I want to let you know that this story deals with sensitive and emotional topics. Please watch with care if you find such content difficult. Here's where things get twisted, y'all. When the pastor's wife, Micah Miller, bought herself a handgun, her husband, John Paul, didn't do what most husbands would. Any other guy would freak out and ask, "Is she in danger?" Not JP. Nope. He picked up the phone and called a mutual friend. And the question he asked, it says a lot.
JP personally called me and said, "Hey, Micah bought a gun. She's out in the backyard. Well, you think she bought it to shoot me?" I don't know, JP. I don't know what's going on in the house that would be a reason. He was scared, was wondering, "Do you think she bought it to shoot me?" Well, why would that be a question if you wasn't mistreating her?
You think she bought it to shoot me? That was his first thought. Not her safety, but his own. You gotta ask yourself, why was JP so scared of his own wife? What did he do that made her buying a gun such a threat to him? Officially, the story goes that Micah took her own life. But this phone call, it sure hints at a whole different reality. One hidden behind the walls of their home. Quick thing before we start, where are you watching from right now? What time is it there? What's the weather like? And tell me, what case do you want next? Leave it in the comments. I go through everyone. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's go. All right, folks, let's get real for a second. Imagine what it really takes for someone to dial up 911, not searching for rescue, but making sure they're found once it's over. We're talking April 27th, 2024, down in the quiet wetlands of Lumber River State Park, North Carolina. On the other end of the line sits a dispatcher, listening to the calm, steady voice of a 30-year-old woman named Micah Miller. She wasn't panicking. Nah, she was giving them step-by-step directions. She told the dispatcher plain as day she was done and just wanted her family to have a location.
I'm about to myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
That's some heavy stuff. But don't get it twisted, this call didn't answer every question. It just kicked off one wild mystery, the kind that's got secrets, power plays, and straight-up fear hiding behind those church windows. Now, picture this. The afternoon's totally still. For some dude out fishing, it's just another day on the water. He's out there chasing a little piece, not knowing it's about to get snatched away for good.
Put in there with my little boat. And maybe 5 minutes after getting into the slough, I heard a cry, a faint cry. Heard it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and the crying stopped.
The sound a human cry, sharp, desperate, and way too real, gets swallowed up by those thick woods. And after that, nothing. Just that creepy, bone-deep silence that makes your skin crawl. Our fisherman, he gets hit with a chill, like a sixth sense telling him things are about to go sideways.
I said, "Oh my God, don't tell me, because the crying had stopped." I said, "Don't tell me something's happened, don't tell me something." I was getting ready to get out of there. Another 3 people came into the lake on a boat, and I plainly asked them, I said, "Did y'all hear that gunshot?" They said yes.
Then comes the bang. Yup, a gunshot splitting the quiet, confirming the fisherman's worst fears. When the cops arrived, they did what they do best, traced the digital breadcrumbs from Micah's phone. They spot her car by the boat landing, and not too far off, they find her. Next to her, a black bag. Inside, pretty much everything a person needs to get by in life.
Her license, her bank card. She had her keys in the bag. She had a little small Bible, all of her credit cards, her bank cards, and a few receipts of some things.
For the Robeson County Sheriff's Office, it looked open and shut. They had the 911 call where Micah said exactly what she'd do. The weapon's there, and she was found right where she said she would be. Just days later, the medical examiner stamps it, suicide, done deal. Case closed, right? Family left shattered, trying to piece together something that never did make sense. But hey, fellow true crimers, this is where things get spicy. Because when the official word dropped, Micah's family and friends weren't buying it, not for a second. They remembered the real Mika Joyful, making plans for tomorrow, breaking free. The idea she would just check out like that, no way. They said, even if her hand was on the trigger, there was another force pushing her there, a force you can't always see, but you can sure as hell feel. So we're about to follow every clue Micah left behind, her journals, police reports, desperate videos, all leading back to one question: what really went down in those woods? Was she running from something, or was she pushed? Stick around, because the real story is just getting started. Let's break it down for all you sleuths tuning in. To really dig into the mystery around Micah Miller's death, you gotta rewind and look at her actual life, not just what some cold report wants you to believe. The Micah her family and friends remember, she was pure sunshine, y'all. Like a real spark plug. A powerhouse singer and musician, lighting up the stage every Sunday at Solid Rock Church, making sure everyone felt the faith. To the congregation and viewers online, she wasn't just the pastor's wife, she was the beating heart of their church. Her smile, infectious. Her energy, boundless. And with her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, everybody called him JP. They put on a front that looked like something out of a southern fairy tale. JP was that big shot leader from Myrtle Beach, and Micah was his beautiful ride-or-die partner. From the pulpit, JP made their marriage sound like it was straight up #goals. All love, harmony, teamwork.
Probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. She was incredibly affirming. We spent every night together for hours just talking and talking.
But real ones know, every picture-perfect couple's got a backstory. Their whole journey started at the church, when Micah was just a fresh face on staff and JP was already running things. At first glance seems romantic, right? But for Micah's family, those little warning bells never stopped ringing, y'all feel me? The age gap was no joke, and JP had, well, way more power than Micah starting out. Still, Micah loved deeply, determined to build their life on faith and hope. For years, their public image looked solid. But here's what you need to know, true crimers. The stuff that makes her tragedy so hard to swallow is that in those final weeks before her death, Mika wasn't spiraling. She was climbing out. She got herself a new job she adored, reconnected with old friends, made plans for way more than just the next day. Her crew saw her stepping into her own light again. One friend even remembers talking with her days before she died, a chat that straight up wrecks the official story. A woman setting up brunch for Sunday doesn't just check out on Saturday, am I right? That's the contradiction nobody could ignore.
A hair appointment this week. She had plans to attend church with them on Sunday. So the news, when I heard it, I thought it was just some kind of terrible misunderstanding. She was headed in a positive direction and she was making plans and had a new purpose that she was pursuing. She was loving her job, everything.
So ask yourself, fam, if Micah wasn't planning to leave this world, maybe she was planning for something way bigger. Her answer? Hidden deep in boxes of journals and stacks of paperwork. A private timeline, written out by her own hand, about a marriage that looked perfect but was anything but. Stick around, because this case is just heating up. All right, true crime fam, time to dig a little deeper, because after a tragedy like this, grief can turn a family into investigators faster than you'd think. For Micah Miller's loved ones, that pain, it was instantly mixed with a fierce drive to get real answers. See, while the police had slammed the case file shut, her family started their own investigation. They just knew deep down that something crucial was missing, that the public face of this perfect pastor's wife had just been a mask. Here's the first major crack. Micah and John Paul weren't the tight couple everyone thought. In fact, they had split up months before everything went down. Back in October 2023, those divorce papers hit the table. And trust me, this wasn't some mellow good luck separation. This was a cold, desperate dash for freedom. Her closest people saw it. Micah was finally trying to create a new life, one where her ex-husband couldn't call the shots. But breaking away from a powerful guy like JP Miller, yeah, that's a whole battle in itself. Thing is, JP started playing his own mind games. Before Micah's death, he began putting out this weird, almost chilling narrative, making her look unstable, painting himself as a possible victim. One of Micah's friends remembers a call from JP that just doesn't sit right, even now. It was less worried husband and more setting up an alibi in advance.
JP personally called me and said, hey, Micah bought a gun. She's out in the backyard. Well, you think she bought it to shoot me? I don't know, JP. I don't know what's going on in the house that would be a reason. He was scared, was wondering, do you think she bought it to shoot me? Well, why would that be a question if you wasn't mistreating her?
Why is that the first thing on his mind instead of, is she safe? Is she okay? It's, you think she bought it to shoot me? That right there speaks volumes, folks. It's like he was laying down a story before anything even happened. But JP wasn't the only one building a case. Micah herself had been archiving every detail, saving receipts, docs, and most important, her own words. When her family started the brutal process of going through her things, that's when they found it. She'd built a paper trail for years, assembling a file so thick you'd need a whole afternoon just to flip through the boxes. One detail sticks out. Even in the middle of heartbreak, JP was making a stack of phone calls. Not to mourn, not to reach out for comfort, but to track down those journals. What secrets was he scared the world would learn? Why was he so desperate to control what survived her?
The mounds of paperwork that I have is incredible. She collected a lot of things. She kept a notebook. I have boxes of journals, which, by the way, he's made 100 phone calls looking for, as I understand. And he is constantly trying to stay in front of this, spin some some story, and
let that sink in. In those boxes, Micah's voice finally breaks free. Silenced for years, it's ready to tell the truth the world never heard. As her family turned those first pages, the mask came off and the real story of her marriage began to spill out chapter after chapter. All right, let's get straight into it, True Crime Squad. You want proof this case is more than meets the eye? Start with Micah Miller's journals. They're not the ramblings of someone losing it, but the tactical receipts of a woman fighting to get free. And her family, they pieced together the hidden timeline she'd built, revealing a downright chilling mosaic of psychological warfare. This control game wasn't just emotional, not by a long shot. It was full-on, next-level tech. Check this out. One mechanic finds a GPS tracker stashed on Micah's car. Yeah, you heard that right. A little device meant to keep tabs on every move she made. According to her own police reports, she'd felt eyes on her for a while. That tracker confirmed it. She was basically on a digital leash, every step clocked. It's a massive violation, zero privacy, a heavy-handed message, you'll never outrun me. But the twisted stuff doesn't stop there. One day, she discovers a razor blade shoved in her tire. That's crossing the line from mind games to something way scarier. Every incident got reported to the cops. Every report, another brick in the thick file she was stacking up. Here's where it hits hard. In February 2024, just 2 months before her death, Micah was forced into 48-hour psychiatric care. She always said her husband orchestrated the move. Imagine how much power it takes to spin it so the world sees her as unstable instead of as a survivor. Her mental health weaponized against her, turning truth into a shadow. This was gaslighting on overdrive, folks. JP wasn't just controlling the story, he was bending reality. The more he painted her as crazy, the less her voice counted with law enforcement, judges, the whole community. But here's the flex. While JP was allegedly setting her up to fail, Micah was actually flipping the script. She started dropping videos. She reached out to anyone in a similar nightmare, defining the abuse, pulling herself out of the dark for others. It was her way of clawing back power one clip at a time.
You don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs, or alcohol abuse, or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're you're not giving it your all when you know you are.
She was reclaiming her story, getting louder with every day. And for someone in her shoes, a pastor's wife fighting dogma and drama, it was huge. For years, that sacred marriage talk kept her trapped, but Micah found something bigger. In one of her videos, she redefined herself, breaking the chains with faith as her armor.
I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately and reminded me, because I think I forgot. I knew, but I pushed it in the back of my head just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ before anybody else's bride. God hates divorce, but why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that? That I'm God's bride first. And even an earthly spouse who's a good spouse, when they know that their bride is being hurt, just imagine what an earthly spouse does. What do you think your heavenly spouse does when you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt? What do you think he thinks about that?
She was done just surviving. Now she was becoming a survivor, a straight-up advocate. She started working the law, her faith, her own words, all a toolkit for freedom after over a decade of control. But pause and think. When a guy obsessed with power feels it slipping away, what does he do next? He can let go or make a move nobody sees coming. A move that keeps him in charge, no matter the cost. All right, true crimers, brace yourselves, because what went down at Solid Rock the Sunday after Micah Miller's death took chilling to another level. Church is supposed to be a sanctuary, right? A place where the whole crew can come together, mourn, and lift each other up. But on that day, folks walked in expecting a heartfelt memorial for the woman who'd been the soul of their church. Instead, what they got, well, it was nothing like anyone expected. Picture this. Less than 24 hours since tragedy struck, the congregation standing quiet, faces raw with shock. Who steps up? John Paul Miller, JP the pastor, the grieving husband. But instead of heartbreak, what spills out is the coldest boss-level command you could imagine. He walks on stage, not as someone mourning his wife, but as a leader making sure business keeps rolling. He tells everyone to get on their feet. Hopes rise in the room. Maybe he'll share a memory or even break down for a second. But nope. JP rolls straight into command mode. He tells the church they need to keep gathering every Sunday, keep serving, and let's get real, keep giving money. Yeah, you heard me. Fundraising right out the gate.
Altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have, I'm taking a little bit of a break and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll get him a microphone. He'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Then comes the bombshell, delivered flat as a weather forecast. My wife has passed away. He barely pauses, drops. It was self-induced, almost like an afterthought. And then he drops the narrative he's clearly been building, blaming the whole thing on Micah's mental health. Says the congregation knew she wasn't well and that her meds were tough to get. That's the very story Micah said he'd been planting for months to control the conversation. He wraps it up announcing the funeral details and bounces. No tears, no shared stories about the woman he once called his partner. Just marching orders to keep the church business flowing and an on-the-record, hyper-controlled message. The room, pure stunned silence. This wasn't grief. It was the mask slipping. The world saw the raw video, and suddenly millions were calling it how it was. A cold, calculated PR move. For Micah's family and all those who knew her real story, it was all the proof they needed. JP's real focus wasn't love or loss. It was holding on to power and the church's cash flow. The aftermath? This weird, heartless speech didn't quiet anyone's suspicions. Instead, it lit a wildfire. People across the country started digging and asking questions. And then, out of the woodwork, other women with stories about JP came forward ready to say their piece. Here's where things shift from local drama to full-on national true crime frenzy, folks. That icy speech at Solid Rock was supposed to control the story, but instead, it was like lighting a powder keg. The video blew up online, and suddenly the Micah Miller case wasn't just a Myrtle Beach headline, it was on countless screens everywhere. The conversation moved from whispers in the church to a spotlight on domestic abuse, church scandals, and hidden power. For John Paul Miller, JP, the fallout was brutal. 1 minute, he's the guy controlling the narrative. Next, he's front and center of a national investigation, and people aren't just looking at one tragedy anymore. They're digging deeper into everything that went on at Solid Rock Church. Now, Micah's family wasn't standing alone. As the story picked up steam, more and more voices started speaking out. Don't sleep on this. A wave of new allegations about JP began to tumble in. Folks who'd left the church started sharing stories about intimidation, fear, and even suggestions that maybe Micah's tragedy wasn't the first time something dark had happened. Here's the wild part. A local podcast drops the bomb. Multiple sources claim there was another mysterious death connected to the pastor, another woman who had ties to JP. Not proven, but the fact that people are willing to talk just shows how deep these suspicions run.
He then allegedly begins another affair with a church member who has a husband who uses a wheelchair who mysteriously ended up dead and drowned in a pool. Is that accurate?
Yes. That's what we've been told by people who have reached out. We've spoken to former church members. We've spoken to current church members.
This wasn't some outlier theory either. The allegations were serious enough that the Fed started watching. The FBI got involved, reaching out to local cops. Suddenly, it wasn't just Facebook detectives and podcasts on the case. The investigation went official, and the pressure on JP started to build. On the ground, JP was cracking. That smooth preacher persona faded, replaced by a man who looked like he was losing grip. One video surfaces showing him blowing up at someone in public, threatening jail and humiliation, a whole new level of menace. For those who really knew Micah, it felt like the world was finally seeing the man she'd been up against for years.
Wait.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours. Walk away.
That's the environment Micah was fighting to escape. The threats weren't just in private, they spilled out everywhere, wrapping around church members, family, anyone JP suspected might stand against him. The net was closing allegations, witnesses, pressure from every side, building a clearer picture of a guy who seemed addicted to control. When someone threatens power in public, questions start flying. What about behind closed doors? What did Micah really endure in those final desperate weeks? All right, crew, this is where the timeline goes into overdrive. To understand what went down in those North Carolina woods, you gotta rewind to Micah Miller's last day. The clock starts ticking on the morning of April 27th. Micah wakes up on a mission. She drives out to a pawn shop and, legally, buys a handgun. Official investigators see it and say, premeditation. But for her family, it's pure survival mode. A woman dead, scared for her life, especially after telling police she feared JP could kill her. Now ask yourself, was she buying a tool for escape or for protection? With her new purchase, Micah's on the move. She leaves Myrtle Beach, crosses the state line, North Carolina bound. Each mile she puts between herself and JP is like a silent battle won. This ain't some random drive, this is a pilgrimage, a one-way run from the source of her pain. Somewhere on the road, she records a video. You can feel the heartbreak. Her voice is raw, her words are careful. She tells her loved ones why she's been so silent, why she kept her circle tight. That's a survival tactic, the kind of move folks in real danger know all too well.
Thank you for all your prayers and support. Know that I have to keep my circle really, really small right now. I'm used to having a really big circle, so it's hard because I want to reach out to everybody and tell you how much I love you and I miss you. But this is the best way that I know how. So I love you all. I miss you.
Listen closely. This isn't the voice of someone giving up. It's someone trapped, still trying to leave a last message for the people she loves. Isolation wasn't her choice. It was forced on her by fear. But the psychological pressure was non-stop. One disturbing audio recording between Micah and JP exposes his tactics for keeping her under control. He doesn't just argue, he erases her reality. When she says she feels ants crawling on her, JP just tells her flat out, there's no ants on you. It's gaslighting in its purest form, replacing her world with his own version.
JP, I think Mark is coming. I had him try to get in touch with me again to make sure. Is that okay?
You know the ants.
Huh?
The ants fight me. There's ants all over me.
He was like, there's ants on you? There's no ants on you, though. It's just, maybe that's how you feel, but there's none on you. There's none on the grass. What kind of medicine do they have you on?
Her desperate reply, I just want to see Jesus. Right there you hear a spirit at the edge. So, rewind to that final 911 call. Now you see it for what it really is, a last act of control. Micah made sure there'd be a record, that her family could find her, and there'd be no way for her story to get buried or twisted. Law enforcement stays firm. The evidence points to self-infliction. But the full sweep of Micah's life paints another picture. A homicide of the soul. This wasn't just escape from life, it was escape from him. And when there was nowhere left to run, she took the only exit JP couldn't control. Here's where everything shifts from one woman's desperate struggle to a movement that hits way beyond Myrtle Beach. Micah Miller's final act wasn't just about making sure her own story didn't disappear, it sent shockwaves that forced the whole institution to shake. The church that protected JP couldn't hold back the flood forever. Solid Rock Church had to pull the plug, suspending JP and ending his run as pastor. The platform he used to control people, gone. The community he ruled, now split wide open, packed with grief and confusion. But, Truecrime crew, the battle's not done just because JP's out of the pulpit. The legal system's kicking off with lawsuits piling up, each one daring to ask hard questions about what really went down. Now the spotlight's on him, not his story. What makes Micah's case thunder is how many folks it woke up. Her tragedy is igniting a new fight, a push to change the law. Activists and her own family are fighting for Micah's law. The goal? Turn coercive control, intimidation, isolation, psychological abuse into a standalone crime in South Carolina and across the country. It's the invisible prison that leaves no bruises, but still destroys lives. Micah mapped out every tactic JP used, a masterclass in how coercive control looks and feels for real survivors. The dream behind this new law? To call out the invisible crimes and give victims help before things ever turn physical. It means giving a name to the darkness Micah faced. The same stuff hundreds of women go through every day and never get justice for. Her legacy isn't tragedy, it's courage. Even that fisherman, the one who heard Micah's cries and gunshot in the wetlands, carries those memories forever. He saw firsthand how one life can change a community.
I want this to stop as far as me. I don't want to make this all about me because I'm still thinking about Michael. I'm trying to respect her family, and I got total respect for them, and I am so sorry for what they're going through. I never thought my day would turn out like that.
Micah isn't here to see the movement she sparked, but her final videos show she was always an advocate at heart-defining abuse, sending lifelines to strangers, refusing to stay silent. She built the evidence. She changed the conversation. The rest is up to us. So ask yourself, fam, it's not just about how Micah died, but how much control she ever had over her own fate at the end. Her story screams that the real wounds, the ones people never see, can be the deadliest of all. And now we have one last chilling question. How many other Micahs are out there quietly building their own archives, praying someone sees the signs before it's too late?